Video, and today I'm just going to be discussing some of the reasons why people struggle to lose belly fat even though they're exercising quite regularly. Alright, so let's get into it. So this is something you see a lot, especially with the gym junkie or person who sort of loves to exercise, but really they struggle with their diet, but sometimes not always. Sometimes it's some other little reasons that are making it really difficult to shift that especially weight around the stomach. All right, so no matter how much they exercise, they just fail to recognize that the solution is not more working out. All right, and they really need to look at other things in their life. So I'll help you to sort of break that down. So people think carbs, saturated fat, or just their genetics. There's some truth to all of these in some degree, but it's not the main reason. Inactivity, eating too much sugar, and stress is a big one, and just too much food in general. But I think most people are not stupid. They do realize they're eating too much, but to just say eat less, it's not usually a good strategy straight away unless you're not fail to recognize the reasons why you're eating too much. And it's really those things that you need to change. So we know that if you don't, this is a good quote, so if you don't make time for your health, health will make time for you. So I think people who are working out kind of recognize that they need to be active, so then inactivity is not them. So they kind of do understand this, but they just sort of don't really want to look at the big problem or the elephant in the room, which is probably their lifestyle factors and food. And it's really those things that they really want to look at. So now, maybe one of the big reasons for that is stress. Now, this is a massive topic. This video could go for like 5 hours if you really did dig deep into this. And there's no real easy answer. All right, and if there was, someone would have already told us by now. All right. So most of us have a lot of work stress, family problems, financial stress, day-to-day working problems, and just things that come up. There's no way around that. It's just life, and it's just a matter of trying to find better ways to cope with it and deal with it and react to it in a better way. So a lot of the things that help us do that are getting better sleep, better food, enough exercise but not too much exercise, because inactivity and too much will both lead to the same place, which is not a good place. So the more factors at play, the less likely the body will be able to lose weight and achieve good health. So the stress response sort of coming from all of these sort of things. Do you see what I mean? So nutrient deficiencies, that could be someone who's just not eating enough, trying to go on the calorie deficit, but really stressing themselves out in a big way, creating cravings, all this sort of stuff, and the nutrient deficiencies creating other problems. So and you've got all these other things going on at the same time. So you could be creating gut problems from nutritional deficiencies, creates inflammation, and all these. Every time the stress response is turned on, you're going to have problems around belly fat. Right? So this all comes back to cortisol. So cortisol is your stress hormone. So when it's chronically high, it suppresses your androgens, your growth hormone. So things like testosterone and the growth hormone are basically pushed right down so that cortisol can cope with the stress. All right, so you need testosterone and the growth hormone to repair from your training, but you can't because the cortisol levels are so high. So if you're trying to add muscle and get fitter, but you're under immense amount of stress, you're really going to have a hard time. And if you're trying to lose weight and keep the weight off, the metabolism is going to be affected because it really responds to how much muscle you have. So as this is going high, they're getting depressed, and as the testosterone decreases, your stress hormones are elevated. So it's like a vicious cycle of one feeding the other. All right, but again, it's not just stress. Isn't just what you think about. It can be from eating poor food, or not eating enough. Blood sugar's out of control, not sleeping enough. All these things create a high cortisol level. So they're really the hidden danger that's creating the belly fat in the first place. Now, if you ignore that and just continue to try and work out harder and harder, your body just starts preparing for the situation by accumulating fat around the belly to preserve more energy. to cope with the stress, because cortisol will require it. So it's just going to be creating an extra storeroom to cope with the stress. All right. So exercise is really excellent to counter stress, but if it's not used wisely, it actually creates more stress. So while you're trying to crush yourself with more exercise and then starve yourself with a restrictive diet, you end up just creating more higher cortisol levels, which then ends up leading to like binging and other things where people get on the yo-yo diet because they just haven't really addressed the factor of how to cope with this stress, how to find a nice balance, get to bed on time and things like that. So this is where the working out excessively actually backfires and just creates a bigger problem than if you're working out a little bit more less and maybe not as intense at times. Also, unchecked stress responses can cause repeated spikes in blood pressure. So this increases your chance of a stroke, which is obviously not good. So as you get more fat around the belly area, the high levels of the stress hormone being activated, the lowering IGF-1 and maintaining high levels of glucose in the bloodstream. So this endless supply of cortisol really weakens your immune system and exposes you to other things like diabetes and cancer. So, so it's really clear here that stress is a huge factor, and one that most people are just really ignorant to, or they maybe know, but just try to exercise their way out of trouble. So what do you need to do? Well, focus more on strength training than trying to crush yourself with endless cardio. Try and get outside, get some vitamin D. Go for walking instead of trying to run and cycle your way out of it. Look into meditation, breathing exercise. Try yoga, perhaps. Obviously, seek some psychological help if you're really having trouble. Really get to bed on time. Try to reduce stimulants, and obviously food, which we're going to touch on next. But all these little things are going to be much better to do than trying to crush yourself with more exercise. All right, so if you're doing the same old stuff, you're going to end up in exactly the same place. You need a different strategy, and it's not working out more. So here's a little quote here. Every 35 days, your skin replaces itself, and your body makes new cells from the food you eat. So what you eat literally becomes you. So this is where we touch on the food type of thing. So again, coming back to like bad habits, cutting back and eliminating processed foods as much as you can. This makes sure that you get all your vitamins and your minerals from foods that are loaded with that. So your veggies, your fruits, meats, dairy, some grains, but maybe not so much of them. One of the easy things to remember, if it's in a packet, bottle or a jar, just don't buy it. It just basically means it's processed in some way. So all of the nutrients in the food are minimised, so you're not really getting as much out of it. You're getting your energy to move, but your body's really starving because it just doesn't have the stuff in it that it needed. So try and think of these habits, so like protein and veggies. You never go wrong with those. Try not to skip meals. That's another big problem. The one plate rule, try not to, if you're going to a restaurant or something, just don't overeat. And have good snacks with good food between meals so you don't have blood sugar drops. So like I was saying before, you are what you eat. So find the best foods that fuel your body. So for example, if you're eating something that makes you feel great, you probably should be eating that type of mix of food more often. Where if you're eating something that makes you sleepy, sluggish, or even cravings, it's probably something you need to change with that food or the ratio of how much you had. Just try to learn to listen to the reactions of your body, and that helps you to choose what's right for you. So if it increases did it increase your energy? Did you crave sugar after it? Did the last meal make you sleepy, wide up? These are things that are sort of tell you that the mix of the fuel in it wasn't right for you. All right, so there's no sort of one way. These are some of the foods that you can really sort of want to eat a lot of. Again, the mix of them are different for each person, but if you're predominantly eating mostly this and not skipping meals, it's fair to say your body should be responding better if you're getting to bed on time. All those things, you should start to have better chance of doing things. So another thing is to try and plan ahead. So if you can, if you've got eating too much carbs, and that's usually because you're eating for convenience, and that usually means you haven't planned very well. Sort of left yourself at that point where you're hungry and there's not enough time to make anything. so you end up choosing a poor option. So, you know, the old saying, cook once, eat twice. So if you cook a good meal, maybe cook a bit extra and have the leftovers ready for the next day. Skipping meals, it's another, you know, where people have lead themselves to those blood sugar drops again, that leads to the hypoglycemia, but like food cravings. So, you know, if they are eating these cravings which they don't really want, but their body's just, the signals are to restore the blood sugar are just going to be overwhelming. So your willpower will be instantly sacrificed in order to do that. So also when you're eating garbage and then some good food after it, you might have eating them too close together. So then you basically overload your body with too much food. And that puts a lot of stress on the immune system, and again you're activating cortisol. So it's when you see, if you're a person that's always sort of reaching for some sweet thing to bring your blood sugars back up, that's telling you that your ratio is not right. Your fuel ratio is out of balance. So one of the best ways to control that is eat more protein. So protein and saturated fat to some degree will help you to sort of maintain that blood sugar for a lot longer. You still need carbs, so you can't eliminate them, especially if you're working out, but just need to try and get a better mix of the protein sources. So here's some good ideas. You know, and balancing the blood sugar again, that stops you falling into the trap of overeating and eating junk stuff, because you feel really good energy, you feel alert, and you make good decisions. You always make bad decisions when you're in blood sugar drops, and that's usually when you're on that yo-yo of trying to starve yourself and exercise too much, and then you go hypoglycemic again. All right, so these are great ways to get that, to avoid that trap. Calorie deficit, well, I'm not a big fan of calorie deficit. I understand it does work and it is a real thing, but again, I just try to, the problems is, as they're saying here, like you could eat 100 calorie pack of cookies and have 100 calorie apple. So obviously you know which one's the better choice, but in terms of just looking at it in a calorie perspective, the person could be losing weight but be extremely unhealthy because of the crap food that they are eating. All right, so this is where I don't really have an emphasis on that, more on the quality of the food. And if you're eating like good quality protein and stuff with it, you won't overeat because you get full faster. You only overeat when you're eating garbage stuff, which you could easily do from cookies, and this would leave you to that blood sugar drop again. So I'm not a big fan of obsessing over calorie deficit. I know it's a thing and it should be there, but just try to get your diet right and the other things, and eventually you'll start to fall in the right place. So here's a good quote about success is journey, not the destination. The doing is more important than the outcome. So try not to obsess about the scales, what the weight says on the scales. Try to focus on the things you need to do to lose the weight. So focus on, in terms of exercise, lifting your weights, maybe interval training, but not long sort of bouts of cardio. Building muscle should be the most important activity you do, because has the biggest influence on your metabolic rate, which means that you're going to be burning energy when you're at rest instead of just when you're exercising. So I'll go into more another video separately on this, because it's a bigger topic again. But just understand, like, you really need to address the factors that are creating stress. And if you can do that, you'll make better decisions and everything will start to come together a little bit more easily, and more importantly, be able to stay in good shape instead of being on that yo-yo up and down. Now, I go to my website, and if you want more helps on just nutrition or how to put things together with exercise as well, these two reports you can download immediately in PDF documents. They'll give you everything you need to know to get started. All right, so hope you enjoy that video, and I'll see you on the next one.